Hey everybody, welcome back. In today's video, I want to have a look at Sweatcoin. Now, it's been a while since we've looked at Sweatcoin on the channel, or excuse me, I should call it Sweat Economy, as it transitioned from Sweatcoin to Sweat Economy back in September of 2022. But it's been a while since we've looked at Sweatcoin, and that is just because it's a low cap altcoin, and there's just not much data surrounding it. Again, it launched in the bear market of 2022, and as we can see, it's sort of done what you would expect it to do of a brand new altcoin launching in possibly the worst time for a crypto to launch. It went down 94%, and it even launched towards the sort of end of 2022 September time. So if it had launched in March or February, it could have been a much worse story. But Sweat's here today, and it seems to be doing much better than it has been. We can see we're actually coming back to sort of levels that we were at in March of beginning of this year, and even actually like reaching levels of November of 2022. So not too far after it launched, even though it had an extreme sell-off during its initial month of launch. Price kind of plummeted, but that's to be expected, and it's not too out of the norm. We can also see that Sweatcoin has been rallying for quite a long time, and I mean 6 months now, which is much longer than most altcoins that are higher caps that we've been keeping an eye out on the channel and been following more regularly. And this isn't too unusual for a low cap altcoin to sort of do its own thing. It's not unusual for them to sort of live by their own rules and to sort of ignore what would otherwise dictate the rest of the crypto space. And that's just because they're often very community driven in a way, because there's not many people buying and selling these cryptocurrencies because they're so much lower market cap. So when good news happens and these sort of small groups of people are aware of it, they will often buy stuff, and when bad stuff happens, they will sell of it. It's not to a grand stage, and there's not much liquidity. Another reason that we might have started to see this bullish uptrend is because for a while now, big channels that would sort of cover cryptocurrency, Coin Bureau and the Crypto Corner, they have mentioned Sweatcoin, and they've spoken about it quite favorably, and they've hoped for this idea of sort of being able to walk and earning enough money to sort of pay for a bus every now and then. And they're saying that's the ideal world that they would like Sweatcoin to, the role that they would like it to fulfill, and all this stuff. And that would be very cool if that did happen as well. So that could be a reason for this sort of bullish move up. And we can see it has been, again, like a very healthy, naturally seeming rally upwards, just slowly trending up. You can see I've drawn a couple of lines here, not too many. Again, I try not to overcrowd the screen with too many things, but if we zoom in here on this sort of two white lines with these four sets of orange lines, we can see that they show a support line on the trend up and a resistance line on the trend up, and they're very close to being parallel. So we can see Sweatcoin has been fluctuating within a nice range, staying within that range, and just slowly trending up. And those are just sort of to outline where we can maybe think Sweatcoin might go if it continues this trend. These two orange lines here and these two orange lines here just indicate wedges, and the reason I've drawn them is because they also line up with these blue resistance lines or support lines, whichever they change as time goes on. And we can see here they were a resistance line, and Sweatcoin bounced off the resistance of the white trend, which happened to coincide with this sort of resistance of the blue line, which we sort of made back in December of last year. So a year ago now, this sort of resistance or support at the time was formed. We revisited it, and when we dropped below it, you can see it was quite significant, and we never came back above it up until recently, and it acted as a resistance for quite a while. We can see once we came back up to test this point, it still acted as a resistance, and we got rejected initially. We tried a couple more times, and we kept getting rejected until we sort of met with this white support line. And we can see it also formed a wedge over like the 2 weeks leading up to it, which caused a very explosive pump, which eventually brought us over the finish line and got us above this sort of 1 cent sort of resistance line, which is a quite significant resistance line. And you can see as well, once we sort of broke above and once we came back to our support here, the support of our trend line lined up with the previous resistance, and we rocketed off it. And now we've formed a very similar move here where we have a wedge that's formed against our support line. And also what's happened, same as here, is we've rallied up, and our resistance trend line has also met another key resistance, which is about $1.4 basically $0.014. And what happened? Well, we see the exact same thing happen. We get rejected at this sort of very stubborn resistance, and we just sort of slowly trade sideways until we hit this support line. And what happened when we hit the support line? Well, we bounced off the support, rallied up, got a bit of a rejection, sort of trended just below the line until we eventually broke up below. And then once we met the support trend line and we were above the previous resistance, it became a support and we shot up. So if we were to expect it to play out in a similar way, we might sort of maybe expect Sweatcoin to follow this white trend line up until we come to this resistance line. I'm just going to make these lines a little longer. So we can see we might follow this line up until we get to some point around here where our resistance meets our support line, and it could go either way. It could result in an extremely bearish sell-off, or it could result in an extremely bullish pump. Now, considering we've had an extremely bullish pump before, and this support line has held very well, like every time we've come to it, we have bounced off it, and we've bounced off it pretty impressively. I wouldn't be too surprised if we just keep following this trend, especially as the rest of the crypto market seems to be doing very well. I don't think that's too much of an impossibility. And while this trend does look very impressive, it is still down quite a lot from its all-time high. I mean, Sweatcoin was started trading at just under $8, basically around $7. And even though we are now at $1, a cent and a half, excuse me. I've been saying that wrong the whole video, I'm pretty sure. But even though we are now above a cent, trading at about a cent and a half, or we're now at a cent a fifth, Sweat has still got a long way to go, And if we actually pull up sort of what to expect, we are still 500% of a move up away from our all-time high. And that's why this pump from Solana and Avalanche and all these other cryptos is extremely impressive. And even Bitcoin, like they are much, in terms of how far away they are from their all-time high, they are so much closer than where other much lower altcoins are, like Sweat Economy, Hydra, Ultra, all these other cryptos. And even though they've all been doing well, the higher caps have been doing better. And it just goes to show that, again, we talk of the risk curve and how far down you want to go it. And crypto's at the end of the risk curve, and you even have a risk curve for crypto. So Bitcoin would be your safest bet in crypto. And the further down the risk curve you go, the lower the altcoin caps become. And oftentimes we see in bad times, like bear markets, they do poorly compared to everything, and compared to Bitcoin, compared to dollar, they do poorly. And then during good times, like we've seen these last couple of months, they do brilliant. But if you were to hold Bitcoin from the peak of 2021, and you were to hold an altcoin from the peak of 2021, say Solana, which has been doing brilliantly, 22 of the 24 months that you would hold that coin, Bitcoin would outperform Solana. So it's kind of a game of averages. What do you want? Do you want to go with the most probable, that's the most safe? It comes down to you. That's something that nobody can tell you, but just make sure you're always aware of what you're getting into and what's most likely to happen. But that's sort of getting beyond the reach of this video. I just wanted to point out that most likely Sweatcoin will continue to follow this trend upwards. And again, we're slowly breaking above these resistances. Like, we didn't have any problem recovering the price once we got down to these lows. At half a cent, Sweatcoin was quite happy to just slowly trend upward without any resistance. And we can see it just basically went up. There was no trading sideways. We had big corrections at points, but there wasn't any beating around the bush, not sure what to do. But as soon as we came to sort of these big significant resistance levels, it suddenly takes a while to break above. Even though it does eventually break above, it still took Sweatcoin, if we take it from when it hit this resistance to when it eventually broke above, it still took 2 months to break above. And if we sort of do the same from where we finally broke above to where we are now, we can see we have been basically below trading sideways for over a month now. And most likely, if it lines up with roughly where our resistance meets our support, it'll be about 2 months. So stuff is slowing down now, which is something you should be aware of. We're still not in this sort of, even though times are still good, it's becoming more difficult for Sweatcoin to make these impressive moves. But again, that could all change depending on what happens in the crypto space, and also what doesn't happen in the crypto space. Again, these lower altcoin caps are much harder to quantify just because they do their own thing. They're driven by communities that would have a very big influence on their price. Taking a look at Sweat on its Bitcoin pair, we can see that we do have these similar looking lines that I've drawn. We have these two resistances slash supports, and we also have our resistance line and our support line that is showing the trend that we are currently or were in. And we can see it's a very similar story to what we saw on the US dollar pair. Sweat, it was trending up for quite a while on its Bitcoin pair, and it moved quite impressively, because we see from like a low here of where we sort of hit this sort of road bump back in October, it did trend up about close to 200% on its Bitcoin pair, which is very good. And we see that's close to what it did in total, like what we currently have on our US dollar pair. If we take how far it's moved, we can see that we are currently up from low to high 220%. And Sweatcoin on its Bitcoin pair in a much shorter time frame went up 170%. So bullish there, but what makes it turn a bit bearish is we see that we broke below this trend. We couldn't hold the trend on our Bitcoin pair, and so we sort of dropped down below to these levels. And again, another thing I will point out before we get into what's happening here, these levels that I've drawn that we're currently operating within, they're from March of this year. So in terms of time, we haven't reclaimed back to these sort of levels that we have on our US dollar pair. If we take a look where these blue lines were on the US dollar pair, we can see they're much earlier back, and we can see some of them are even initialized as early as October, like a month after Sweatcoin launched. Here we are much further down time-wise on the Bitcoin pair. So it just shows overall not very bullish moves from Sweatcoin, especially looking at it in a long-term point of view. The fact that it's struggling to break out of a range that we saw at the beginning of this year on its Bitcoin pair compared to a range that it's struggling to break out of when it first launched is not good, really. But that's what we're currently doing, and we can see that it has just gone sideways again. So it could be an indicator that we're slowing down with Sweatcoin, that things aren't as bullish as they may seem, even though we are slowly going up on our US dollar pair. The Bitcoin pair can reveal a lot about a cryptocurrency, and it also just shows that Sweatcoin is no longer outperforming Bitcoin. Now we could see that Sweatcoin rallies and we do resume our upward trend on its Bitcoin and US dollar pair. We could see Sweatcoin crumble on its US dollar pair and go up on its Bitcoin pair. Any number of possibilities can happen, but what we're currently seeing right now, no hypotheticals, is that Sweatcoin is struggling on its Bitcoin pair, which could be interpreted as a sign of weakness. Again, there's not really too much to say aside from that, just that we are stuck in a much sooner time frame resistance than we are on the US dollar pair, and we are not in a bullish movement on the Bitcoin pair. We're not bullish and we're not bearish, it's just trading sideways. So it's kind of up to you. The fact that we have these big sell-offs, again, like we see here, big drop on the Bitcoin pair, followed by a bad price movement and then nothing happening. It could indicate anything. We saw a similar thing here. We had like a big sell-off, and then a very long time of poor price action happened. And what we saw here was an initial big sell-off, followed by sort of operating within a certain range, oscillating within a certain range, followed by more sell-offs. Maybe we could see something like this happen. Maybe it's a different market now. This was close to, half a year ago, just over, so anything can happen. It's kind of up to you to make that decision yourself. I can't tell you what's going to happen, and nobody can. You just have to, it's a risk, everything. So you have to find what you're comfortable taking. In my opinion, if you're buying Sweatcoin now, I don't think you will regret it in a year or two, especially when we come back to this time that a lot of people are expecting the bull run to take off. I think if you sort of sell sometime within 2025, the price will have appreciated, in my opinion, but that could be wrong. That kind of wraps it up, I'm pretty sure. I don't think there's anything else that I want to talk about. Again, just look out for this pinch here. We're seeing the same thing happen. Price has slowed down quite a lot. We're not being as bullish. And even though we have this sort of pinch movement and we broke to the upside last time, it doesn't necessarily mean that we'll break to the upside again. And pairing that with what we saw on the Bitcoin pair, it might not be a bullish move. It could be a bearish one, but it also could be a bullish move. It's kind of just up in the air. It's something you might want to go more into detail on and figure out yourself. If you do, please comment what you found out and where you think Sweatcoin is going. If you liked the video, hit the like button, maybe even subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and we are also very close to 1,000 subscribers. We're 120 subscribers, 110 subscribers away, I think. So thank you very much, guys, for watching my videos. It means a huge amount. I mean, it's crazy to me that I have 400 people on a video listening to me and 500 people on a video, and people comment such nice stuff as well, thank you for the help and all this, and it really means a huge amount that people are tuning in and they're enjoying the videos, and they think they are not a complete waste of time. So thank you so much. Really, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. You guys take care. Have a great new year and see you in the next video. Bye.